In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the ethics behind a carnivore diet, and we're going to look at a rather interesting paradox whereby eating only meat, you're actually preventing animal suffering and loss of life. Now, first up on the agenda today, I'm going to be talking about the united goal that we all have, which is to minimize animal suffering, and then I'm going to break down which diet does best at achieving this. We're going to first do this by looking at the number of deaths that come as a result of agricultural practices, such as pesticide use and machinery. And then I'm going to explain how by only eating meat, you're actually saving the lives of animals and preventing unnecessary suffering. Finally, I'm going to give you a thought experiment which may change your perspective on eating meat. Now, before we get into the main part of this video, I want to give a quick clarification. I am not talking about factory farming in this video. I think we can all agree, unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath, that factory farming is disgusting. Some of the practices around the world, especially regarding chickens, where they put them all in tiny cages and don't give them any room to move, is disgraceful. And in this video, when I refer to farming, I'm talking about cows on lush pasture. First up, let's discuss our united goal, which is to prevent as much animal suffering and loss of life as possible. If we could all eat a diet that provided us with all the nutrients we needed, and it meant that no animals had to die, that would be ideal. However, that is not the case. There are many nutrients we can only get from meat, and all these plants contain many compounds that we do not want to consume. Now, the logical conclusion you would have from a surface level perspective is that a vegan diet is the best diet in order to prevent the suffering and loss of life of animals. However, I do not believe that to be true. Now, if you lived off the land, as say, and you ate only fruits and vegetables from your back garden, and you didn't use any pesticides on them, that right there is the ideal diet to minimize animal suffering and loss of life. However, that is just not possible. Most people don't have the land for this. Either they can't afford it or the country they live in doesn't allow them to. So what happens is that humans rely on agriculture for the majority of our supply of plants, which results in a number of problems. The first being pesticide deaths. Now, pesticides, quite literally by design, are intended to kill animals such as birds and insects that try and eat the crops. Now, when an animal dies from a pesticide death, it's a horrible, gruesome death. Often it can be a slow, drawn-out process which leads to lots of unnecessary suffering. Now, there is estimated to be 67 million birds that die each year as a result of consuming these pesticides, as well as billions of bees. You see, for things like avocado and almonds to grow, they require a significant number of bees to come and pollinate the plants. So they have to bring them in through a process known as migrant beekeeping. Now, what happens is when they fly all these bees in to a habitat that they're not used to, they don't have access to the foods that they'd usually eat. So when these bees can't eat what they require and they're exposed to these pesticides, it's estimated that billions of them die each year. As well as the fact that these pesticides run off the plants and flow into rivers and seas. And so what ends up happening is they end up killing fish. In Mexico, there is an area known as the dead zone, where essentially it's a zone of water that is so contaminated with pesticides that all species that go in there die. Now, a common agriculture practice is to use things like tractors to plough the fields. However, what ends up happening is lots of rodents as well as birds are in these fields as they get ploughed. This is not an instantaneous death in many cases. It's another slow, drawn-out process which results in a lot of suffering. In a 2003 study, they found voles, which are a small rodent, that were in bean and wheat fields, died at a rate ranging between 90 and 362 individual deaths per hectare. Now, there are over 5 billion hectares of agriculture land worldwide. Now, obviously not all of these are being ploughed by tractors, but a significant amount of it will be, which again is just billions more deaths of animals. So for the average person on a vegan diet who just buys their plants from the supermarket, there is still a significant amount of loss of life for the food you eat. Now, let's compare this with my diet. I follow a carnivore diet, and I eat between 3 and 4 pounds of beef per day. Now, in a single cow, there is about 750 pounds of meat. So essentially, 2 animals each year die for my food. Now, as we just looked at, there is way more than 2 deaths per individual per year on a plant-based diet. And when you factor in just how inhumane many of these deaths from these agricultural practices are, it really does just demonstrate how by eating an only meat diet, predominantly with beef, you're actually mitigating animal suffering. Now, I want to put you through a hypothetical thought experiment. Imagine you're in the Matrix movie, and Morpheus is giving you the option to take one of 2 pills. You can first take the red pill, and you live a nice life to 30, and at some random point, you're just shot in the back of the head without you knowing. Or you can take the blue pill, and you just never exist. This right here is the reality for many animals that only have a chance at life through practices of farming. The majority of the animals that humans eat are only given a chance at life due to the fact that one day they'll be eaten. And for many of these animals, such as the ones here we have in New Zealand, they actually live incredibly nice lives. For starters, they get these lush paddocks with unlimited food, where they can just chill around all day, they don't have to pay taxes, it's a very cushy life. So in a way, by eating meat, you're actually giving these animals a chance at life. Now maybe this is just a cope to eat meat guilt-free, however this argument at least holds some weight. So in conclusion, more animals die each year from the average vegan diet than the average carnivore diet, and assuming you're sourcing your meat properly, the deaths that come as a result of farming are much more humane than the deaths that come as a result of agriculture. Anyways, that concludes today's video on why a carnivore diet is actually one of the more humane diets that you can have. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more of my content, consider subscribing down below. It's completely free, it means you'll see more videos like this. If you're interested to know why I'll never eat a vegetable again, I have a video that I think you might find interesting, or you might like one of the other videos that YouTube is suggesting. Thank you guys very much for watching, I'll see you next time.